how can you spend like 10 years in one company? It
wasn't
one company.
Yeah, it wasn't one company.
We have like a $2 million car in the trailer. We had some great bikes as well inside.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we leave this car? What do we do? The car you spend so much time on is just gone. Something that you were working on, it's gone in a second. Headlines like, this is the guy that crashed 45 Neveras, which is complete nonsense, because this feels like it was built by a company that's there for 100 years.
Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Stragedy podcast, where we talk about strategies and tragedies of product management, requirements management, startups, all that fun stuff. Today with me I have Matija Renic. He is, from my perspective, in some ways a superstar engineer who I worked under for some time. I know you for years, but I think my viewers have a lot of things to learn from you, so welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for nice words and the invitation here.
Yeah. Usually this Stragedy podcast starts with sort of like an origin story from your own words. So maybe if you can run us down from your early like high school and then college days, and then we'll go on from there.
So born and raised in Zagreb. Then high school I was always, I would say, good in maths and physics.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always a lot of interest was coming from that side. Then it was logical to go to MIOC in Zagreb.
You went to MIOC?
To MIOC, yes.
Nice.
So after in MIOC, quite good program with mathematics, physics, programming as well, or informatics, how they call it in Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically where I started programming, basically in high school.
Already.
So, yeah, we did Pascal. So
as we all
did, I guess. And yeah, quite interesting. And then it was only logical thing to do was to go to FER, the Faculty of Electrical Engineering in Zagreb.
Mm-hmm.
Then first year you usually pick between computing and electrical engineering
Mm-hmm.
per se, and I wasn't that good in hardware and this type of stuff, calculating currents and this kind of stuff. So
Okay.
and programming was always I would say something that intrigued me in a way. But I always liked the connection between physical and programming in the physical world, and embedded software was then, let's say, the thing that connected these two things together. So it was always important for me when you do something to actually see, the result in the physical world. And that's the reason why I stick to embedded software.
It's interesting to me. So when you say you start programming and then you want to see results, that's why I got into web development, because when we did C in college, you had output was in console, which I wasn't relating with. But the moment I started doing web development, I could have a red square, a button, a form very quickly on. So that was like this real result that I felt from my coding, And then now this is maybe a different path to this, where you have a physical thing that you code for, and then there is a results there. So
yeah, it's very similar, I would say. Then basically finished while doing finishing college. I was also like, my first job was probably playing in a band. It was like semi-professional.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. So it was like traditional Croatian music. I played tambura for like 15-20 years, something like that.
When you say semi-professional, like, what do you mean?
Proper gigs, like we did, in our peak we would do 4 or 5 gigs per week.
Per week?
Yeah.
Was there any money involved?
Of course, yeah. So
Nice.
I would basically do college Monday to Friday. Then Friday, usually at noon, we would go to play some kind of wedding or something like that. Then Friday, usually 2 gigs. Saturday, again, you start at noon, 2 gigs. Let's say 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening, and then sometimes even on Sunday you would have one. And then I'm just hoping that Monday comes, that you can take a bit of rest on college or university to recuperate a bit.
This is also interesting. I didn't know this about you, but usually, and maybe I am wrong here, but people from tech, like from this industry, are not that fond of traditional, let's say, music in that sense. So
it started very early. Like it was a sort of a code. I don't know how to say this in English. Like whatever. It's like organization of organization that cherishes this type of traditional music and dances, and it started like that. So it's also quite nice because you play there and you travel. So we traveled like half Europe, went to US for 3 weeks as well with that, and that part is really nice.
Yeah.
But then you figure out, okay, we can play on some parties, we can play during some, I don't know, weddings, whatever, and you can get some money for it. So starting in high school, we already, started to get some pocket money, and it was actually quite nice. And I like to mention that because this was kind of a first experience with, almost like a proper job. You have to figure out with people, first of all, how to engage, how to contract this, how much time you're gonna play and so on, and you need to show up on time. And you're still a kid, you're like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So you need to show up on time, you need to manage expectations, and in many cases you're dealing with people that are intoxicated in this way or another, so you need to figure out a way how to handle this type of situations as well. So it was really, really, really cool experience, I would say, figuring out how to deal with people and how to run sort of a small business. And in a band we had like 8 more people, so you need to manage that a bit. And
this is something that I as a kid noticed that later in life, and again I might be wrong, but people who had more free time were less focused, less successful later on in life. So sports is good, like if your parents are pushing you to sports and any kind of these extracurricular things. I went to robotics, to electronics, I was also playing in church, but not at your level. But yeah, I mean, you learn a bunch already as a kid. These small lessons that you don't even know, but you are applying later in life.
Yeah. So when I finished university, I think I finished on Thursday or Wednesday, it was something like that. I think it was Thursday. On Monday I was already working. I had my first real job, I would say. So it was a company based in Croatia called Altpro, yeah. So they're doing safety systems, safety and signaling systems for railway.
So it's more on the infrastructure side of railway, not on the train?
It's both. It's both. So they're doing infrastructure, but they also do some safety systems for the train itself.
Mm-hmm.
So quite interesting experience.
What did you do there? Like, what was your
embedded software? Embedded software.
Yeah.
So exactly what I wanted to do. So we were programming. The biggest project I did there was programming railway crossing. So we have a huge computer which is distributed with, I don't know, in some cases I think we even counted like 64 microcontrollers doing different stuff. Safety level was on the highest possible rating, so it's something like ASIL-D. In railway it's called SIL, like SIL4. So highest possible level, you need to do all the certification, you need to make it work properly. It was quite interesting.
So how autonomous were you when you started this? Like, were you just, you have to code this, everything was given to you, or how big maybe was the company? That's the
company was around 100 people, but most of them in production. So in our software team there was like three people.
So you probably, I'm assuming, had to take more responsibility and was more flexible than, it wasn't like a huge apparatus where you were just a small cog.
No, of course.
All of you did a bunch.
you had to take over a lot, and you figure out, okay, now nobody is, supervising me in a way. I need to figure this by myself.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting because it also involved quite a lot of field work. So you would code something, and then you go out and do the commissioning and testing. So I spent even some time in South Africa.
So it wasn't for like a local railway.
No, they export to I don't know how many countries all over the world. So Indonesia, South Africa, in Europe, like we had some projects in Austria, in Czech Republic. It's quite interesting.
Did they have like a sales team, or how do you know?
Yeah, usually they would cooperate with locals. So they would usually have a local company, like a distributor or something like that, which would kind of be responsible for these local things, but they would do all the development and production in Croatia. This company still exists. It's like a family-owned company, which is quite big thing, I would say.
Yeah.
To stay on the market for such a long time, and some really niche and really specific market.
Do they do anything besides railway? Like, did they spread to other industries like highway for?
No, it's mainly.
And did they grow? Like, are they?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers. I have still some friends there, but yeah, they are slowly growing. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a startup thing. It's more like, as I said, good family business, which is constantly growing. And again, they are developing new generations of technology, just keeping up with the pace. So quite interesting experience, I would say. Spent there like 3 years. So.
And in these 3 years, did you started also doing some other work besides embedded software development? In any official term, like I was team lead, I was responsible for this and that, or?
No, as team was really small, it was mainly that for these 3 years. At that time, I was still playing, still doing music.
Okay.
So I was just, during the week, I was waiting to go and do some music, and then over the weekend, on Sunday evening, I would just hope that I start working next day, because you're so tired from this. So it was just, doing back and forth between the two. And yeah, I didn't have much time to do anything else, basically. And at that point, I thought I was working a lot in Altro, but then I went to Rimac afterwards.
Yeah, that's a different animal. But how did this happen? Like, why did you leave this company and then?
Yeah, I just wanted something new. Wanted to try something new, and there was this story about this crazy guy doing some. And that first I saw was the green BMW somewhere in the wherever internet news, whatever. So I thought, wow, this is something interesting. And then at that point there was already Red Concept 1 out. So I actually applied 1 year before I actually got a job for the first time. So I applied to Rimac and just got a polite email. You did not meet our whatever.
Okay.
Whatever it was. And then after 3 years in Altpro, I just, again, there was a new ad going on, and just applied. They called me in. I had 2 interviews and got the job. So that's when that part of the story starts. I just felt, there is something, maybe something new, something a bit more interesting out there. My motivation wasn't actually, I wouldn't say at that point I wasn't a car guy. My motivation wasn't I want to work in automotive industry. This is a must for me. For me, the technology was always, what is interesting, and building something from scratch. The best way probably to explain that is, when you're playing with Legos as a kid, I always like the part when you build stuff, when you build it, and afterwards when you build it, what to do.
Yeah, right.
To build a car and do what with it.
You don't want to play with the car, you want to build.
Yeah, I wasn't about playing with that thing you built. So that's how I feel it also in my career, the part when you are building something is actually interesting.
So you joined Rimac then probably in that first real big expansion when they went from...
So it was 2015. I remember when I came to the first interview, there was Tajima car, so the famous Pikes Peak car. So they were just assembling the car for the first season. So a bunch of guys working on this, and then I sit on a couch waiting for them to call me in, and there was white LaFerrari parked there. So I said, okay, what is going on here? This is, this at that point it's not something that you would see usually around. I said, it's something crazy is going on here, and that was it was like 80 people. So it seems a lot today, but where the company is now, it was very, very...
Just the beginning. First expansion. I call it first expansion. I joined around 105, I think was my number when I joined. So you were slightly before me, couple months probably. And you joined embedded software, or what was it?
I was actually first embedded software guy there. And
so literally... coding embedded software.
Yeah, because at that point, everybody was questioning this, how we are going to do it now, and it made sense because the way they did stuff before. So you would have one person which is actually figuring out what the requirements are. So single person figuring out what the requirements are, starting with electrical schematics, doing the PCB design, and sometimes also the mechanical design for the housing of the ECU, for instance. Then coding the low-level software, coding the application-level software, and testing all of that. And this was a single person. So you are responsible for, rear body ECU, and Dario was, for instance, doing that. And I remember when I came there, he was doing everything, literally everything. Or a person for PDU, for master BMS. He's doing everything from design of the PCB board to software, everything. One person for everything. So when I came in, this was almost like a new concept, like how we are going to divide this. Should we really have hardware and software guys? That was the
people don't understand that it was like that.
Yes, it's really hard to understand the way things were done.
Okay, and did you then divide hardware and software when you came?
It wasn't really from that day that everything changed. It was, I would say, gradual. I started working on some projects alongside Matija. First they gave me, just figure out this, figure out that, figure out what would be the microcontroller that we might use on our new platform and that stuff. So it was kind of slow for first couple of months. Then we started working on Concept 1. Together with Matija, and this was immediately, something new. So we started doing it in MATLAB and Simulink and programming. It was like all-nighters with Matija, really, really crazy stuff. Catching some deadlines, making sure the car works, and it was, something really, really new and exciting for me. So that's where I actually learned a lot about how the cars function and how things are done. Because at that point, I again had to talk with Matija, who was he was leading EE at that point. I think it was called like that. So you collect requirements, you figure out how you're going to write it down, you do the software part, you flash it on the car, you test it, sometimes you even sit inside the car and drive it. So it was similar way how I was explaining on the ECU level, but a bit broader. So then you start thinking and investigating how this is done, what's going on with steering, what is the integration between brakes and steering system, how do you collect this data, how do you control horn or locking and this kind of stuff. You start thinking about state machines, how the car is supposed, it's really, really mind-blowing how much you can learn just by being put in that kind of situation. So this was one part, and then we started developing a team. So started with me, but at some point we had almost like 30 people in embedded software when I left to some other positions.
So was it hard for you I'm assuming in that previous company, because they were in railroads, they had to have this functional safety thing. Like, was it hard? Were you applying those things that you learned how it actually should be done? But it's hard to apply in this startup environment. Like, did you have any internal conflict, at least, like, oh, we should have done it this way, but there is no resource, obviously, so, did you...
You're trying to use whatever you know at that point, so I didn't feel any conflict. It was just everything was happening so fast that you don't have time for such things. But, of course, I used a lot of things that I learned there, and at that point I was a bit skeptic about this MATLAB Simulink programming of embedded systems, but I have to say it changed my mind when I started doing it, because it's really, it moves away all the, let's say, unnecessary stuff. So if you really want to pay attention, or if you want to really develop properly application layer, this is really way to go. And it's quite integrated in many aspects of automotive, in simulations as well. You can do a lot of stuff. So quite interesting. And then basically after that, when we figured that out, we also tried to do very similar thing for ECUs that we developed in-house. So electronics that we developed in-house, we also made a complete set of tools to be able to program it also in MATLAB and Simulink.
But was this back then already industry standard? This
in automotive, yes. But for me, coming from my previous experience, this was something I would say, completely crazy. How can you do this graphical programming in embedded? Who takes care of the resources? Are we sure that this is properly translated into low-level language? Because in my previous experience, we would set registers in microcontroller, set bits in registers in microcontrollers. So it's really, bare metal without any. We're actually developing sort of very primitive operating system, but it was really almost bare metal program.
And was there anyone already who had experience with this, or were you all
MATLAB?
like,
Yeah. At that point, Matija was.
He was already somewhat experienced with this. Okay, so how many years in are we right now in your Rimac story? And
this is just the beginning, and then it was concept one always in this beginning, but
still,
also
still this mixed but embedded software role.
Yeah. So at that point I was, as I said, growing the team, but we also had many other interesting projects, like that Jaguar E-Type conversion that we did. That was a very interesting one. Probably one of the best cars we ever did, like, which really felt so good driving it, and so good as a whole product. I really like that product. And we did, it was a prototype for Jaguar. We delivered it, everything was fine, and then one Sunday I'm just doing something at home and TV is on, and there is this royal wedding happening there, and nobody pays attention. We were doing something else, some construction, some painting, some walls or something like that. And then I was just passing by TV and I see that car there. What's going on? Like Prince Harry and I think it was Prince Harry or whoever. One of them was just driving in it, on the royal wedding. So wow, okay, this is this is the car that me and our test driver Miro was actually driving around Croatia doing some tests.
I remember I was a passenger on one of the drives. What was interesting, that was first time that I saw how other OEM was working with a supplier, in a sense, like when we needed to wear their branded T-shirts and everything was under cameras. That's also an experience in a way.
Yeah, the other one was for Renault. This was also quite big. So we did sort of technology demonstrator for them. It's like 3 cars in total, 2 mules and 1 demo car. Quite interesting experience. Spent half of the year probably in France doing tests. Yeah, that much. And at that point, like I was doing concept one, some stuff which needs to be done was basically only together with Kruno, programmer for this complete car, and trying to lead the team back in Croatia, which is growing. So it was quite intense. And we had some smaller projects as well, but I would say this is the first part, first stage. And we are probably something like 2 years in, half years in.
So at that point, you are a team lead and embedded software developer. Okay.
And then basically Nevera started. So Nevera development started a bit more seriously. And then there was this idea that I should be a technical lead for all the components development that is done internally. And this was quite a lot. So starting from powertrain, like we had battery, motors, inverters, gearboxes, then complete infotainment system, all the ECUs in the car, electrical architecture around it. So quite a lot of things.
So this is where I'm very interested to hear your point of view. So, I was working there, looking at you. I know you started, as a normal guy, and then quickly started climbing this ladder, taking more and more responsibility and all this stuff. But how did you feel? Like you say there was this idea that I was supposed to, like someone came to you already with this, or were you ambitious so you kind of raised your hand, I might be able to do this, or how did this go? Like,
so at that point, as you know, most of the moves inside the company were happening because the need was there.
Yeah.
So we were at that point like two teams. We had vehicle engineering and components engineering.
Yeah.
So I was at that point part of components engineering, led by Matija, and it was his idea. Like, we need a person that is our interface to vehicle engineering and takes over all the data, leads from technical perspective everything that's going on, and tries to, let's say, lead and put everything together. So it was obviously something quite new for me. All of a sudden I'm responsible for gearbox development. And at that point, I don't know much about gearbox development.
Yeah.
But then you figure out, that it's
all the same in a way.
I wouldn't say it's all the same, but you have to trust people. So obviously I cannot compete with engineers that are developing that gearbox. But I guess that's not the intention either. You have to understand if somebody is telling you the right things, or he's
You're allowed to curse here.
I am, okay. If he's bullshitting, you figure that out very, very fast, and you figure out that development is development, R&D is R&D, and it's a lot of things are about mindset, and you don't have to really understand everything to be able to lead properly. So it was first experience, and that didn't last for much. I would say maybe 6 months to 1 year, something like that. But yeah, it was first time I'm put outside of this, let's say, main expertise, which was embedded software. And in the back, I had similar situation. I was never leading a team before, and all of a sudden you have to establish a team, and you try to learn along the way. So that was also from an organizational point of view, and leading people for the first time, it was something new. And when I look now, I don't know why they gave me these opportunities. Like it's a bit crazy, without experience now you're gonna lead. But I guess you have to start somewhere. So
did you ever encounter a situation where, let's say, someone, you mentioned gearbox and you didn't know anything about gearbox. Like, were there people, because you had less knowledge about gearbox, that were not happy of you now being in charge in a way? Like,
of course, sometimes yes. And you in Rimac you had several situations where you would actually lead people which are way, way older and have more experience than you. And in some cases this was let's say a bit of a difficult situation. But somehow, I don't know how to explain it, but somehow you need to gain trust. and this is the most important thing. Once they figure out that you're not there to make their life miserable, that you're there to help them out, that you can maybe, figure out, make their life even easier, or help them out in a way. When they see that you are not trying to do their work, I think it's a bit complicated to explain, but it takes some time to get a good relationship with people, and then it kind of works.
Did you ever get some official from the company, like education into people management,
Yeah, this was a bit later, I think, when company was probably like 300, 400 people, something like that. And it was quite good. I have to say, it helped me a lot.
It reframed you, it gave you some ideas that you were not applying.
Yeah, exactly. So even simple stuff like how to give feedback to someone. There are very, very simple like guidelines and rules, what you should do, how to do this to be really, really good at it. How to organize a team, this kind of stuff. But for instance, this is something I learned there about providing feedback, and it's quite useful. We had several occasions, things like that, and it gives you a good perspective. It helps you out.
Okay, and you also worked with design, and you also worked with HR because you were growing teams, and engineering you already talked about. How do you feel about these different departments? Like, was there any friction there, or was always smooth sailing?
There are several, several situations which are quite interesting, and I've seen them throughout the complete career, and that's like friction between designers and engineers. Mm-hmm. This is something I cannot explain. I guess their brains are just wired differently. Yeah. There is no other explanation for me, and it's really hard for them. But I also see a quite big difference between electrical and mechanical engineers, mm-hmm. the way they think. I'm an electrical engineer, so I'm probably a bit biased there. But yeah, quite some difference in approach as well between these two. This is something that was interesting. What else? Between HR and people, not so much, because they were so busy with employing people at that point and trying to find next person that can help us out. So he has always good relationship with them.
So I remember back then it was this split, as you said, component and vehicle development, and I also originated from component and went into vehicle, and that's when I basically got under your department. But I had official role product manager from components. And then we had to change that because word manager meant something different in Rimac, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember you and HR came to me with a different title proposal. I don't know if you remember this, which was documentation specialist. And I fucking flipped because that to me meant
sounds bad. I have to say, sounds bad today.
Yeah, not the HR or you in a way understood what I felt was my responsibility. It's ironic now because now I'm building the spec writing tool, but and I also remember at some point you saying to me, you're doing a great job. You are everywhere, always, supporting everyone. But in the end, if it's not written, 6 months down the line, it's not like it wasn't even done. Like if you don't have written specs, you forget. Yeah. And I loved everything about my job except sitting down and writing part. And this is something that I'm trying to emphasize to people that this spec writing is a part of the wider picture, and I feel that it was always, everyone is struggling with.
Yeah, I remember we had opportunity actually to have some really nice benchmark cars.
Yeah.
And like back in the day, we were driving like 720S, McLaren 720S and Bugatti Chiron. without even knowing what's going to happen afterwards. This is really iconic, I would say. But I guess this was the discussion we had. Okay, it's really nice. We came there, we got some experience. We figured out, what's the throttle response, how the car is getting locked and unlocked, all the, let's say, the important stuff. What happens when you push the brake and throttle at the same time. Yeah. But if we don't document it, we did nothing. Like, it's really nice. We had a nice joy drive, and everything was really nice. But if we didn't document it, if we don't have a database that after, 6 months or 8 months, in some development, we have a question how we want to develop something, and we cannot check it. There is no way how to check what Bugatti does when brake and throttle is pressed at the same time. So this was a discussion that, and this was always the hard part. Everybody likes driving and exploring and investigating, but when you have to sit down and write it down, it's first of all boring, but also it's a lot of work to do it properly. So I guess this is the first time we saw that this is not that easy.
It was that, and I remember when we got the functional safety consultants, and then they came, asking for everything written, because and maybe we misunderstood back then what it means to certify for functional safety.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on. So you
so
now...
that was that components engineering thing, and then, as I said, we were split in components and vehicle engineering. So vehicle engineering at that point, let's say 1 year into this new role of the technical lead, they were missing some expertise on electrical side. So also the chief engineer back then was mainly focused, and his background was mechanical engineering, and he could use some help from electrical side. And then there was sort of agreement between Matija, who was leading components engineering, and Daniele, who was leading vehicle engineering, for me to join forces in vehicle engineering. So this was quite a big move. Back in the day, it was a lot of friction between these two teams, really a lot of friction. And I was kind of sent there, let's say, to do some peacekeeping and to bring, let's say, this electrical side a bit higher. This was the idea, and it was long negotiations. What should I do? What's I not supposed to do, and so on. At the end, my responsibility when I joined them was electrical architecture and powertrain. And then along some time I took over also testing, so vehicle testing. So these were like 2 or 3 big departments that I was leading. So inside vehicle engineering. So just to explain a bit more for everybody, vehicle engineering today is Bugatti Rimac, so basically OEM producing cars. And components engineering is now Rimac Tech, so they're developing components for internal use, or in this case for Bugatti Rimac, and also for other OEMs. So this was quite a big move, because now I'm moving out of. It's funny because at that point when I was inside components engineering, I thought I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life, developing components. But then somebody pushes you a bit in a new direction, and you figure things out as they go.
Do you wanna say, or would you say that these shifts happen always in the time of crisis, or was these things planned in a way?
Nothing was, at that point, nothing is planned. Like, you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's firefighting mode all the time, especially, in a startup that grows that fast. And that is trying to do something crazy as developing a completely new platform for a new hypercar, and still, develop, I don't know how many components for how many OEMs. At that point, we're just firefighting all over. And it's not about long-term strategic planning or anything like that. You're just trying
survival mode.
You're just trying to survive, and figure out how to do next step. Just to put up the fire. That's the biggest at that point.
You didn't have internal mentor. There wasn't someone experienced, more experienced than you. You were all learning along the way. But then I remember we started hiring some people like Chris Poret. Were you looking for that mentor type and then figuring out always that I need to, in the end, do it myself? Or
it's quite interesting topic. I wouldn't say I didn't have mentor. I didn't have officially mentor, but since the day one, for sure, Matija was one of the mentors, one of the people that I looked up. But it was also, people that were, let's say, in my level that do similar stuff. So you look around and figure out who knows what and how they can help you out. For sure, as new people were coming in with a lot of experience, people like Chris and others from big automotive companies or a lot of automotive experience, you were trying to catch, whatever you could from them. I think one of the things which I learned along the way is that there is no this, special savior which is going to come with all of his experience and going to fix all the things. This, in my experience, this never happens. Yeah. So of course, people with experience are valuable. But there is no, we were kidding, like there is no Jesus which is gonna come and save us all. This never happens. So if you have a startup and you're hoping that this next person is gonna save it, and make things easier, this usually doesn't happen. Especially for people which are coming from a lot of previous experience. You have to understand that if somebody comes to a Croatian startup doing automotive, and if it's coming from one of the big companies, he is expecting or she is expecting a lot things to be normal and functional, which simply aren't in a small startup. They maybe even don't exist. There is whole departments which don't exist, and if people which are coming don't have this mindset, a lot of them get really lost because they know how to work in well-organized, structured environment, and they come to something which is Wild West.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about there is no silver bullet, that solves everything. I remember when we struggled with writing requirements and we were doing it in OneNote, we were doing it in Word and different Excel, blah, blah, blah. And then we figured out maybe this JAMA software was the thing. And I was really hoping that will, literally, okay, now we have a dedicated tool for this. It will solve all our problems. But in the end, it's exactly what you said. There is no silver bullet. You need to sit down, be it with right people or be it with right tools, but you need to get over the learning curve. You need to sit down and.
I just talked with Snježana a couple of days ago about something. So Snježana is program manager for Nevera from the day one, and she said, "You remember when Marko came to me?" And he said, there is this new software called JAMA. We will write requirements there. Everything is going to be solved. Yeah. And it was like, I don't know, maybe 10K or something like that. Mm. And we also took some consultants to set it up for us and so on. And she was saying, Marko, are you sure? If we pay this, everything is solved. Yes. We just need to do that. And she was saying like, okay, no problem. Let's
I was so optimistic back then. Yeah. But yeah, it's a tougher nut to crack than I thought.
Yeah, but still, it was it's one step forward from everything else we did in the past. So we probably did not use the full potential of it just because the amount of people to do this properly would be probably the same as everybody that was employed on the project, but still, it was for sure for some important things very good step forward.
So I want to also mention some famous moments in company history. Are we already past the Hammond crashing the Concept 1?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. How do you remember that day? What were you involved with?
It was really crazy times. Like, just to put things in perspective, I can probably tell a story. So we were actually going. I was going there with a couple of other guys. Ivan, Mrva, Mrgud, and me. We were like the team which was with the car for this 10 days or something like that. That for the shooting. But all the preparation for this was even longer, probably like complete 2.5 weeks, something like that. So we had to even develop some special software for charging, for these fast charging stations in there. So it was quite intense just going there. But just to put things in perspective, we are driving to Switzerland, to this company that does these special chargers. We will spend some days there to test if the car can properly charge, so they can actually use the car while filming properly. So we are putting car on a trailer. So it's Ivan and me sitting inside the car. Actually, we borrowed the car from Mate or something like that. We put the car on a trailer. So before leaving, we figure out we have only one spare tire for the trailer. And we go and talk with Ante and say, okay, this tire, it looks completely damaged. It stays like this. It doesn't look that it can survive at all if we put it. And for some reason, the tires would occasionally blow on this trailer. So we say, Ante, we should probably buy a couple of tires so we have them as a spare. And we actually didn't have money to buy a tire at that point. So that's the situation the company is. So we say, okay, we just go as is. And somewhere halfway, I remember the town is called Vicenza in Italy. So I see the going on highway and see the nice side Vicenza, and you just feel like a small jerk inside the car, and that's usually a sign that the tire is blown on the trailer. So we stop, we look at each other. So what do? Let's change the tire. Let's put that one and go straight to the tire shop. There is no way we can drive more than that with this. So Ivan changes the tire. And we drive slowly, like maybe 30 kph in most right lane, just very, very slow. Probably, I think it was like 7 kilometers to the tire shop. 3 kilometers in, you feel again another jerk. So the tire that we put on the car,
that one
blown. So we were just driving on a rim. We couldn't do anything else. We come into the tire shop. It's 7 in the evening, and the guy works until 7. It's like 6:59. We drive in and we tell him hello. He speaks on Italian, obviously. So hello, we would like to change the tire. He says, yeah, see you tomorrow. So we are looking at each other. So we have like a $2 million car in the trailer. We had some great bikes as well inside. Where do we leave this car? What do we do? So we just moved a bit to a petrol station and slept in the car. Making sure that nobody does anything with our equipment. So these were really the circumstances under which we are going to this event. So event was, there is so many stories there. Some of them I cannot even say, but it was quite interesting, and everything was going well, really well. So the first time probably we said, okay, this is it's finished. We relaxed a bit. Was just before this last hill climb, and then we heard. Actually, we saw like a black smoke come. We were on the bottom of the mountain, just relaxing. I don't know. Ivan and guys were sitting on the grass. I was just walking around. I don't know, just waiting for this to finish finally. And then we see like black smoke coming from top of the mountain. Somebody called us, "Oh, guys, it's your car." And at that point, you think, okay, it's nothing. Something. He crashed in another car or something like that. So we were driving uphill, came there, and like couldn't even see the car. So it was quite stressful, but we very soon figured out that learned that he's okay, which was the most important thing. Most important thing for us. It was when you see it really what this car did, what kind of crash was this. It's literally a miracle that he survived in any type of car. It's really unbelievable that he survived that kind of crash.
How was it filming with them? Like, what's that experience like? You know, is it a huge also machinery, you know, organization around the filming and everything?
It's huge. A lot of it for me. What was interesting is a lot of it. It looks like genuine. They are driving and so on. It's like scenes. You know, they have this script and they go through it. You have a feeling they're driving 500 kilometers. They do all the filming for this sort of 500 kilometers in like 3 kilometers of the road, just taking it from the different angles. So from that perspective, you figure out that it's a show. It's not, you know, it's almost like a movie, like something which is really scripted. There is point where they can improvise a bit and make jokes and so on, but in this type of episode, most of it's scripted upfront.
And the three main guys, Hammond, Clarkson, are you able to, like, are they separated somewhere, or are they mingling with you guys as well?
No, we managed to talk with them a lot with Hammond because he was driving our car, so we also got some feedback on it. So it was quite nice.
And was he like genuinely curious, tried to learn, or was it just give me quick?
No. He was really into it. He was really into it, figuring out how the car works. So Miro was showing him around the car, making sure that, you know, he does understand everything he does. So yeah, he was quite interested. They also have professional drivers, so that can do some.
And did the Clarkson and James May, no? Did they wanted to try? Did they try the car or?
Yeah, actually Clarkson, I think.
How did he fit in that car like that?
He really wanted to try it, so
okay.
He fit inside. Yeah, he tried it a bit. So it was something new for them as well. You can say, oh no, I'm not electric fan and so on, but electric car fan or something like that. But still, when the car is there, you want to figure it out. You wanna try it.
Yeah, I remember that day. I was working on M2M, and I was one of the people who always had the link and in a way was not responsible directly, but you know, I was the one that had the up and running system, the telemetry, and Mate called me pretty early on after crash that like give us access to telemetry. Like this is very, very important.
And it felt really bad at that point, you know. First of all, just not looking the bigger perspective, like the car you spend so much time on is just gone. Something that you were working on, it's gone in a second. Obviously, it was most important for us that everybody's alive, but you know, when that goes, you know, something that you worked on so hard, like we were working on that car for months and months, and not just talking about the development, but you know, just the production of the car, and you just lose the car in a day. It feels really bad. But then also looking at the complete picture, you know, it was really, really hard times, but somehow we managed to flip it over and make it I would say, you know, quite positive.
Yeah, no, looking back, I think it's one of the events in time that helped the company
back then it didn't
feel
like that.
In the moment it didn't feel like that, but in retrospect it was a positive thing. But okay, let's go ahead. Nevera project, at some point you became chief engineer.
So this was quite some time. I was, as I said, doing powertrain, electrical architecture and testing. So then I had 2 or 3 chief engineers which were handling the project above me. So trying to catch and understand what they did. And at some point, when actually Chris left, I took over the position.
So what, in your words, what would you say chief engineer role does on a project like this? Like,
so I can say what I did, what was my responsibility in that setup. So I would say program manager, which was Snježana, and chief engineer was actually leading the project. This is the simplest way to say. So some of the responsibilities were interlapped, and we were talking about it, making most of the decisions together. But if we really want to split it, like program manager was responsible for budget and timing, chief engineer was responsible for all the technical topics and making sure that all the R&D deliverables are there. So kind of between these two people, at least in that setup which we had, these two people were responsible and leading the project. So in bit more details what I did, I had to coordinate all the development from different R&D teams in vehicle engineering, responsible for making all the technical decisions, also kind of for budget, but mainly together with program, discussing how to handle stuff. So in reality we actually did it together, and it was a lot of things that
and what about production? Because if you do engineering, and I know Rimac was building facilities left and right, we moved a lot. Were you involved in any
This
way?
was mainly Snježana's responsibility, so making sure that the production and all the logistics and everything there was functioning. But also from the engineering side, we were split in this so-called SE teams. So that's like simultaneous engineering teams. So that means a guy from my team who is responsible, for powertrain, was SE team lead, but he would have people from other departments coming to this team and making sure that all the deliverables for a certain area, in this case powertrain, were actually met. But people from other teams were like logistics, design, manufacturing, what else? I don't know. Purchasing, even sales sometimes. So all the different perspectives, and this person from R&D team was actually kind of leading that small team responsible for all the deliverables inside this area. So it was kind of interlapped between the program and R&D side.
There is also another famous moment in your career. The opening of the bridge.
This is the most famous.
The most famous. You were on TV and everything when Croatia basically connected. The land was connected with this bridge, and you drove Nevera. You opened that bridge. I was watching when they were recording you for TV. You seemed quite nervous. How was the experience of that day?
First of all, I went there by chance. Mate couldn't make it, so I think Marta suggested
you as a chief engineer
to do that. Yes, I really felt I'm representing the whole company and everybody there. But somehow this became my biggest achievement in my life. I have people at that point. Everybody was he's the one who was driving I don't feel this is so big. Compared to some other stuff I did. But I guess it's a lot of media coverage, so people really like it. Like even now, even today, I'm doing some construction at home, and there is construction guys coming in, and they ask me, what's about the bridge? How was it?
It's a drive over a bridge with a car.
It's and also in Croatian media, you could have some special. Headlines like this is the guy that crashed 45 Neveras, which is complete nonsense, because we did 45 crashes, but not 45 Neveras that we crashed, and I wasn't inside the car actually while it crashed. And for me it was like achievement for the complete team. It's quite nice that we had our car there. And
was it stressful for you that you mentioned Mate was supposed to do it, but then he couldn't for whatever reason, and then you got picked? those moments. I'm also interested to hear like internally how you felt. Do you accept, like, was this an offer or it was you will do it, and then how you feel about it? I know, let's call it stage fright, that when you need to go and stand in front of the whole company and blah blah blah, things like that. So how
Until then I had some experience with this type of things, so it wasn't that frightening, but still complete Croatia is looking at you, and literally, so it's quite big and historic moment. But had some experience because while preparing all of these cars and doing software for them or development in this way or another, I was involved in this way or another with journalists during these different presentations, car presentation, car demo, filming of the cars. So it was kind of a gradual thing. It wasn't like my first experience with similar stuff. So how these things work.
Yeah. How was meeting Chris Harris and filming of Top Gear with Nevera then? And
so it's probably hard to explain to somebody who is not a car guy what Chris Harris meant to us, in a way. We were always doing this car because we wanted to do really good car, like really good driver car, and it was one of the motivation for one motivation for Mate as well, and one thing that he always asked from this car to actually be. Then also our chief vehicle development driver, he is a car guy, and proper petrol head, and things he was asking from this car to actually be was quite aligned with what I guess Chris and similar type of guys like. And it was always important for us to figure out if we made it or not, if this is really
final test.
Yeah. So we had some tests before. We did Nevera launch in I think 21. This was quite also interesting because we gave the car for the first time to people outside the company. Wouldn't say maybe the first time, but it's journalists that can write whatever they want or film whatever they want. It's unsupervised. You give them the car and you see, if the things you did are actually going to be noticed by people, because a lot of things in cars are about feeling, and it's not really easy to explain it to somebody. And it's also, you cannot say if people will notice it, if people will think of it the same way. So even back then we knew that we are going in the right direction, and it seems like we did something special. But then when we did the filming with Chris Harris, this was the final touch, and I mean the video is
I just watched it today again to
that four-wheel drift that he did, and it was really like this, we were supposed to be finished already. They had some regulations about noise and so we were already supposed to be finished, and we told him, man, you need to do this. Just do these settings. Goran and Mrgud were explaining to him, you just flip the car like this, push the throttle, and he said, man, you need to do this. And it was literally last shot of the day,
and it became a highlight of the video.
The highlight, probably how crazy this car is. And feedback that we got from him throughout the day was really telling us, yes, like what we wanted to do is actually there. And a person like Chris, who is proper car guy, can actually see it and feel it, and it's a big thing. It's really a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what we guys built. That's great.
And, he said stuff like throughout the day he's saying like this feels like it was built by a company that's there for 100 years. And if you get something like that from him, it
means a lot.
Means a lot.
Talk about a company that's there for 100 years. When Bugatti and Rimac joined forces, in a way, you never actually started working on Bugattis. You were always on Rimac cars.
Yeah. So I stayed. So So when we had this engagement with Bugatti, back then we started working on BR1, so which is Chiron's successor. But then immediately I stayed on the Rimac products, and developing, finishing up Nevera and Jaguar, and while other chief engineers took over the position of, took over actually the development of BR1, and we got at that point CTO who was leading complete development for both brands. So this was like that.
So in the end, you basically saw the company from the very early startup phase all the way to serious OEM with many people working, many departments, very famous products.
Yeah,
I think
it's quite a change from 80 people to 2,500 now, probably.
Yeah,
something like that, with multiple companies, multiple locations. So, sometimes people say, "Oh, how can you spend like 10 years in one company?" It wasn't one company.
Yeah, it wasn't one company.
It was several companies along the way with actually completely different.
Every couple of years or even faster felt like a different job in a way. But okay, so you and Snježana took all of this, let's say, experience over the years and everything that you learned, and you decided to start a new business and then share that experience with others. Can you talk to me about that a bit?
So we had quite interesting experience, like proper startup unicorn experience, I would say. We really lived this experience. It wasn't just a job for me, but also as for many people inside the company at that point. So as the company was growing, it's becoming more, structured. It's less of a startup, more like I would say a corporation company. So we started discussing, just between us, what might be the next thing to do. We also had we were visiting some interesting suppliers for some Rimac products back then. So got had a meeting with some really interesting startup. So they're doing this crazy technology. You see that they have all the, let's say, domain knowledge, but they have no idea how to bring this to the market, let's say. And I remember just after going out of this meeting, like we were looking at each other and we said, okay, we really like startup way of working. We need to figure something out. Probably the next logical way is to figure out what would be the engagement. How can we use all the experience that we have with what we love, and that's startups and everything that goes with it. Is there some kind of engagement that could marry these two things and figure out how can we actually do it? And then it took us some time to figure out what would that be. So we started our own company called Merlin Hat. So Merlin is coming from first 3 letters of our surnames. If you mix them together, that's really? Merlin.
Okay. So
we added this hat as to be unique, just for the registration purposes, I would say. But it's kind of it has a nice connotations behind it, some magic, some magic put out of the hat. So it's that's the name, where the name is coming from.
So what's the sort of core offering? You want to share your experiences and help startups and startup founders basically immediately jump into this experience phase.
So we see ourselves between investors and startups. On one side, as you said, you have startups which for sure can always use good experience.
Yeah.
It's better to use to learn on somebody else's mistakes than on your own. So for sure we can offer them a lot in terms of technical expertise, problem solving, setuping some lean process that can help you out very very early, building business cases, really hands-on things that we can with our experience give them. figure them out, how to grow properly, what it actually means to bring a product to the market, which we experience quite a lot on the Nevera example. And on the other side, you have investors, which in a lot of cases are financial guys, don't have a lot of technical expertise or understanding of technical background of certain startups, so we can help them out actually pick or understand the details behind certain startups.
So you can do like a due diligence, for example.
Technical due diligence for them, or helping maybe investors wanna invest some time and money into certain startups to help them out grow better, or fix some issue that they have, or just consultancy for them. So we're kind of in between, and this is still, as we are very open for different engagements, this is, I would say, still formed what is going to be the final way how we actually work.
Do you have any preference whether you want to help more hardware-oriented startups or?
So it needs to be technical. That's I would say, the only preference we have. So it needs to be preferably some high-tech thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be only hardware or only software. It can be both or a mix. We probably have the most experience with hardware startups, and this is where we can bring the most. But also with my software background, we can cover even only software ones. So it needs to be interesting also in a way. We are not into fashion and some things like that, So that's not very, very interesting for us.
I'm just thinking right now, you also probably have some connections in terms of manufacturing and suppliers, like you can be directly through your network from before help.
Not just that, I was actually surprised how big of a network we actually have. When you are doing your daily job, you don't really realize it, but the amount of people with different technical expertise that we have around ourselves that can actually solve any issue or any type of problem, or find any type of solution, from mechanical engineers, simulations, electrical, software, whatever it is. We know people that are really good from our network. Not just that, it seems like we know a lot of people also that have money and want to invest in stuff. It seems that a lot of people in our environment actually have some ideas, but that don't know how to start them up, or how to form a company out of it. So I'm actually quite surprised by the amount of things which are happening to us this last 6 months, and how good it actually goes.
And are you focusing on Europe or also?
I mean, this is logical to be focused on Croatia, Europe, but we are not close to any type of engagement wherever. So at the moment it's mainly Europe and Croatia.
Sure. Maybe a more general topic now, before we wrap things up. What are your thoughts on AI movement, AI in engineering, in general? Like, it feels like it came from nowhere and it became everything everywhere, very, very quickly.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit annoying because it's everywhere, and there is almost no startup pitch which doesn't have something with AI nowadays. And I think it's counterproductive, if you don't have a real usage in your product or whatever you're developing, then it doesn't make sense to just artificially put it in because it's a nice buzzword. I think people catch the bullshit behind it. It doesn't really stick. On the other hand, the tools that are basically available to everyone now are quite powerful, and I think they are changing the way we work and live. It's something you cannot ignore, and you shouldn't ignore. I think we should find a way how to use it the best possible way, but not force it, into every type of work which is being done just because this draws attention.
Everyone is freaking out that AI will kill jobs. Do you think that, or is AI just enhancing, let's say, human performance in
Yeah,
workplace?
I think it's just enhancing. But one thing which I heard a couple of days ago, it's very interesting. So it was debate about AI doing actually music and some artwork and this type of stuff. And somebody said, okay, well, this is really interesting. Like now we have AI doing this type of stuff, but we should have AI doing boring stuff.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that nobody wants to do, and people actually doing the creative stuff like music and this type of things. So it's quite interesting. Probably it's easier, you know, just to do some prompt and give me a next song for, I don't know, next techno song and generate it, and that's why, you know, this is already been done. But I would really like to see AI doing the boring stuff, you know, the stuff that nobody wants to do, and people maybe doing more creative.
Talk about boring stuff. This is where we are, what we are actually doing, you know. So as we talked earlier, it's to me very interesting to do brainstorming, to go on a you know, to a track day and in a bullet format document my thoughts and my observations, but then sitting down and basically repeating the same sentence over and over, just in a different format, is a, to me, perfect application of AI. So that's why we are building the tool that can automate this part of boring parts of requirements management. I also wanted to.
I fully agree with you about that. So I honestly, on a project scale which is doing a complete car, I think for a company, you know, which is not, I don't know, tens of thousands of people doing development, it's impossible to do requirements properly.
Yeah.
Because the amount of manpower and time you have to put in to do this, as you said, very boring work, I think it's just impossible to do it, you know. Everything covered with proper requirements. So for sure, I think AI can help us with that, because it's actually providing, you know, producing content way faster than with way less input you have to put in. So I honestly like the idea. Really like the idea.
Thanks. We'll try to solve this. I wanted to ask you this about Bird Incubator in Zagreb. You two, Snježana and you, became mentors there. How did that happen? What does it mean to be a mentor there?
So as we started the company, started talking with different people. So I'm not even sure how we met them, but somebody told us, okay, somebody did the soft introduction for us. Went there for a meeting. The vibe was really nice. Two young guys, actually, you know, doing leading the incubator, doing with a lot of positive energy and so on. So we clicked immediately on the first meeting. They offered us basically to become mentors there. As we are open for all the things related to startups at the moment, we obviously said yes. So did only a couple of sessions with them. So now they have this program where we were part of the jury for startup pitch rehearsals that they did. And yes, obviously we met some interesting startups. With some of them, we will try to do some, let's say, direct engagement with them, figure out if our experience and some work could help them out. So it's interesting for us from the perspective of networking, but also, you know, to learn along the way, as we also learn when we see 10 pitches in a day and figure out, you know, what was good, what was not good. You also listen to other people, what they have to say about it. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, now that I'm in this startup world here in Croatia specifically, but also Europe, I started seeing this pattern that there aren't many startups actually. Like we need more people being brave enough and going into startup. Like I feel there is money, there is venture capital interested in investing, but there isn't enough. Maybe it feels from my perspective there isn't enough high quality quote unquote startups that can grow to $1 billion plus. So we need to encourage these incubators.
That's exactly what the feedback that we got by meeting different people from different funds, VC funds, and investors in general. You know, the biggest, let's say, fear or the biggest miss is actually missing the proper startups, proper founders, proper ideas. So I think also we can help with that. You know, just forming a very rough idea into a complete startup package that could be interesting to someone.
Yeah, it feels it would have been very helpful if we had someone experienced, let's say from very beginning, helping us with framing our message. And maybe you now that you have a bunch of VC connections, you can also do the introductions. Like we vetted these guys; they are already ahead of the curve in a way.
So it will take time also for us to position ourselves, you know, and also on one side on startups to figure out, okay, maybe we should invest some, you know, whatever it is, into growing faster with these guys. Also on the VC side or any type of investor, is it a business angel or whatever, to figure out, okay, maybe before I invest, I should consult with these guys. I think this is going to take some time that, you know, people figure out that this is actually a good thing to do, but we are here for the long run, so happy to change that along the way.
Yeah. Looking at the clock, we are 1.5 hours in. I think this is a good place to wrap things up. Thanks for being here today. Thanks
for the invitation to my first podcast ever.
Who knows? Maybe you return in 6 months, in a year, with some new interesting stories. I wish you both good luck with everything. Maybe you guys will help us as well at some point. I know how to contact you. Is there something specific you want to say to the viewers, or it's optional?
Thank you for the invitation. This is
okay.
It was quite interesting. Yeah, as I said, many things to talk about. So hope to see you again. This type of setup.
Thanks. This was the third episode of the Stragedy podcast with Matija Renic today. As you know, we're building this spec writing tool. Our waiting list is open. Go to our website and get yourself on the waiting list. I'll make sure that you get the access to the tool as soon as possible. And yeah, if you liked this video, share and subscribe. We need to
subscribe.
Yeah, share and subscribe. We need as many of that as we can get. Thank you.